Okay, so in this video, we go over a viewer's credit card setup and figure out his best strategy moving forward. This viewer has cards from multiple different issuers and wants to know whether he should build a setup or hunt exclusively for welcome offers. On one hand, having a strategic core credit card setup is helpful to focus spending on a single point currency, but on the other hand, welcome offers can be much more lucrative and can earn points much more quickly. So in this video, we'll discuss several options for him to create his own best credit card setup. And so with that being said, let's just jump right in. So the first section, I like to start off with this credit card setup question. I really do like this one because it does bring up a lot of interesting dynamics when it comes to when you are first starting out and what you should do with your credit card setup and what direction you should go. So this question comes from Curbsy. Curbsy says, I currently have the Venture, Built, Delta Platinum. He flies for Delta for works 3 to 5 times per year, the Chase Unlimited, and a US Bank Cash Plus, which is his first credit card, and he says it's sock drawered. Is it worth for him to build out a setup, or should he just hunt welcome offers? With his spend being quite low, other than food, it's hard for him to know what cards to get. The differences between 2x and 3x doesn't seem worth it. Should I get more Chase cards for the trifecta or exclusively hunt welcome offers? I also am on Team Travel, and he's at 424 until July, when he will drop down to 224. So a lot of things going on here. I think pictures mean more than words sometimes, and I think I'll do that now. So this is his setup, the 5 cards that he mentioned. Again, the Delta Platinum, the Built, the Venture, the Freedom Unlimited, and the US Bank Cash Plus. And just so that we can remember what each multiplier is on each card, here's an overlay of that as well. And so you can see that the Delta Platinum earns 3x on Delta, 2x on US dining, and 2x on US groceries, which is not great, but that's what it is. Built has, of course, 3x on dining, 2x on travel, 1x on rent. The Venture card, which has a $95 annual fee, has 2x on everything. The Freedom Unlimited has 3x on dining and 1.5x on everything. And the Cash Plus card has 5% select categories, and you can choose 2 of them at $2,000 per quarter. And so that's what his setup is. So you can see he has 2 possible catch-all credit cards. He also has the Delta card for his Delta spending and for the Delta benefits. And he has a Built card for what I assume to be rent, as well as a Cash Plus card for whatever categories he wants to use. So in terms of his strategy, he also mentions that he has low spending, with food being his highest category. So the question then becomes, and that's his main question, is should I go for a setup or should I go for a welcome offer in terms of just getting welcome offers? And the way I approach this is that if you're just starting out, I always recommend having a core credit card setup first. That way, when you're doing the welcome offers or trying to get more welcome offers, you have something to fall back on. But at least you have a core credit card strategy and setup to actually make something work out for you if you're not in a situation where you are not working on a welcome offer. Now, having said that, another reason why I think a core setup is good for you, and there's pluses and minuses to this recommendation, is that you do say you have low spending. So in a low spend situation, you're not able to hit welcome offers as frequently as you would want to if you're using just a welcome offer strategy. Of course, there are lower minimum spend requirement welcome offers, so there's that. But I think that would be something to think about. So again, I always recommend having a core credit card setup. But if you feel like you're going for a certain hotel system, airline system, flexible point currency, welcome offers will be the best way to earn points quickly if that's your goal. And the one thing I didn't hear from your question is what the goal is with all this. Is it to get some just regular cash back from every spend? Are you going for a trip? Are you looking to do build up some points for a certain redemption? Like all that stuff is very important because that'll help guide to what you want to specifically do. And so Shadkar also comes in and says, this question makes me think of the comment you've said before, that you have to know your why. That makes these questions easier to answer. And I agree with that. And we just talked about that. And actually, also Uncle Luke has mentioned that in his videos too, is to always know your credit card why. Because once you know your destination, you'll be able to build a roadmap to get there. And that's really, really important. Yuri's tongue-in-cheek here saying he should get the US bar and use it everywhere, which is totally cool, except you can't do that anymore. So good idea in theory, but not quite. And so in terms of the next part of this, so you can see that there are options for him. And so he did say his food spend was the highest. And so The one card that came to my mind immediately for that was the Capital One Saver card. And the Capital One Saver, as we all know, has no annual fee, 3x at grocery stores, 3x on dining, as well as entertainment and streaming services. Also has that 5x kind of city Capital One travel portal with hotels, vacation, car rentals, all that stuff. But that Saver card is a great food card for you. It has no annual fee and no foreign transaction fees. And I think it's really great because you can now pair it with a card you already have, which is the Venture card, which does have a $95 annual fee, which is fine. But it does give you the ability to, transfer those points out to transfer partners if you want. Also, it gives you a nice catch-all card with really not a lot of frills. Like it's not the Capital One Venture X, but it's the Venture card, which I think is really great. And so that would be a great 2-card setup to use that costs only $95. QC Man saying, hit the like button. I appreciate that. If you're getting value, definitely hit the like button, but we're going to keep going with his question here. So the next option, though, is you also had, like I mentioned before, another catch-all credit card. And that credit card actually is the Chase Freedom Unlimited. So there's actually another setup you can consider doing as someone who is just starting out or just trying to figure out, do I need a core credit card setup or not? And you can see that if you use the classic Chase trifecta, you have a 5x rotating category on the Chase Freedom Flex, 3x on restaurants on all the cards, 3x on online groceries on the Sapphire Preferred, which is not great, but there are ways around that using things like Kroger Pay, and then 1.5x on everything else. And so those are the two setups you can look at and compare and contrast. So one, you do get a 5x multiplier on, but it's not consistent and it could or could not be helpful. For example, the Freedom Flex does have groceries in this category, which is great, but it's not going to be there again for the next 9 months. So that's not great. But at least with the Capital One setup, you do have a situation where you can choose between 3x at grocery stores and dining, and you can use those two categories all year round, which is really cool because you don't have to really think about rotating categories and activate them and all this other stuff. Yuri also says, no, he should go for City instead. Also agree with getting the Saver. So I think City is a great option. Yuri, I know you're a big fan of City, and they do have a great trifecta like you're talking about, the City Startup Premier, the Custom Cash, and City Double Cash. But he has to get 3 cards, and he has to get a new issuer. And so I'm trying to figure out a way for him to get started on a core credit card setup first, because that way it's easier for him to get started and get a core setup. After he's completed that core setup, then I think maybe it's worthwhile to try a different setup. Not saying City is bad, because it's definitely a great setup. But in his situation with his particular cards, I think either going the Chase route or the Capital One route is actually better. Josh Ing also says he could also consider the Amex Gold if you really like Delta, but the grocery category is restricted to the US, maybe the green, depending on the situation. It's true. We don't know if it's grocery spend versus dining spend, what he spends on more often. The gold card's hard, though. It's got a high annual fee, a lot of statement credits. I mean, transferring to Delta kind of sucks because there's a transfer fee when you do that too. So it's not really the best way to use MR points, in my opinion. I also think that as someone starting out, I think just kind of going mid-tier cards is better. But of course, it depends on what's going on. The gold card is really a card that you want to use if you have a lot of high spend on food, which he already said he has low spend on. And so if you have high spend, you're doing 25K in groceries, 50K in dining, like that's huge. But if not, then that may not be the way to go. QC also pops up saying, if Capital One had Amex or Chase partners, that duo would unequivocally be the best in the game. But Capital One partners aren't great for everyone. Even domestic alliance bookings run into availability issues. And I can see that. The partners are a big part of this too, because that's why you're using it. The thing about Chase, which is nice, is that they can be used for cash back as well. And so I think that's going to be one easy thing to do if you want to go with Chase. Chad also has something important to say, which is I'd add Saver for Capital One locks you out, which is a very real thing. If you have a lot of cards, Capital One typically isn't like that. So you want to make sure that you add that Saver card because they could, if you have too many cards, just straight up deny you and you can't get the card anymore. So that's definitely a thing. But also you want to watch out for Chase 524. So that's kind of what I think about his situation. Now, there are 2 pathways to go. Like I mentioned, the Capital One pathway and the Chase pathway. Going through that, I do want to mention something is that for welcome offers, what's nice about building the core credit card setup is that you also earn welcome offers along the way. So with either the Capital One pathway or the Chase pathway, there are welcome offers on the Saver One, as well as the Sapphire Preferred and the Freedom Flex. And the nice thing about those cards is that typically those welcome offers have lower min spend requirements, which fits perfectly in your scenario of having a lower spend just in general. And so that's why I think that this is good. Either way you go, you're going to get both welcome offers and a new card for a core setup, which is going to be getting two birds with one stone, which is pretty cool. And so if we look at the roadmap for either situation, if you do the Capital One situation, you're Chase 424, but you actually will be 224 in July. So what I would do is apply for the Capital One Saver card now. And you'll only be 524 if you get the card. So you get to figure out, if you get the card, that's great. You'll have another card on your 524 status, but at least you have the card. But if you get denied for the card, at least it doesn't affect your 524 status. So that's helpful. Assuming you apply for the card and you get it, you have 6 months to age off those 3 hard pulls anyways. And so because of that, that's great, because then by July 2025, you'll be 324 and you can apply for your Chase cards then, whichever one do you want, because you're going to be below that 524 threshold. My boy Chad Pankoff hit us with a super chat. OG Saver for a 4x on super chats. Amazing. Good job. That's awesome that you're able to get that. But yes, I appreciate the super chat, and thank you so much for your continued support, Chad. I really appreciate that. So that's the Capital One roadmap. When we go to the Chase roadmap, this is what we're looking at. And the Chase roadmap shows, you're Chase 424 now, but you're 224 in July. So you have one slot open. You can apply for the Chase Freedom Flex, the CSP, or another Chase card if you want, but you have to wait for an elevated offer. And I think that's important, because right now there's no good welcome offer for the CSP other than the standard offer. The Freedom Flex offer is the standard offer for what I remember, but I think both of them can potentially get an elevated offer. So you want to wait for that until that happens. So that's really helpful. I would just wait for an elevated offer and then get that card. And then you just have to stay under 524, whatever you decide to do. And then when you're done with the Chase cards, you can move on. So stick with Chase, go with Capital One, and have Chase available. Those are the kind of the 2 options I'm seeing here. I want to also mention that Ashwini Demotoron says, I want to build my Chase setup and maybe get a hotel card, but I'm scared I would get denied for the Capital One cards. Should I build my Chase setup plus 1 hotel card, then have 6 cards and risk Capital One rejection? I would say if you want to build your Chase setup, build your Chase setup. Don't worry about Capital One. I don't have any Capital One cards, and I'm totally fine. It's okay. They have great cards. I'm not going to say that they're bad, but I'm not going to, if you want to do something, you should do what you want to do. So that is the situation. And so for those 2 situations, the question then becomes, what do you want to do? Given his situation, if you were him, what would you do in terms of getting a Capital One setup or a Chase setup? And again, you have low spending, food's your highest priority in terms of categories. So we're going to go to the poll here, and the poll is going to be, would you go for this Capital One Duo or the Chase Trifecta? Again, you can hit that like button to let me know that you're in the chat already. If you already had joined, that would be helpful. Please hit the like button if you get value, and also use this code on menti.com to get access to the polling software too. So what would you do? And we're going to go ahead and start that voting here in 3, 2, 1. And here we go. So would you go for the Capital One Duo or the Chase Trifecta? It says yes or no. I know that's not clear, so sorry about that. But yes is Capital One Duo and no is Chase Trifecta. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So I voted for myself, and that's the only one so far. Is there anyone else that wants us to place their vote at all for this? There we go. We have some people here. Let me see. I don't think I can change it in the middle of it being presented, but maybe I can try. Let's see. Capital One and Chase. Did that work? Yeah, it did. That's pretty cool. It like updates live. So that is the choices there. Capital One or Chase. So you see it's pretty, I would say it's a little bit more than half for Capital One. Maybe there's some Chase at all. Again, if you want to join the voting, go to menti.com and enter the 8-digit code, and then you can go ahead and submit your vote. But it looks like more people go for Capital One than Chase. And so I actually picked Capital One. I think it's a better way to go for his situation. If we remember from when we looked at his credit card situation from before, the cards he already had, this is what he had from before. And you can see that it's pretty random. There's like cards from many issuers. Actually, each card is from one issuer. So he has Wells Fargo, he has Amex, he has Capital One, he has Chase, he has US Bank. So because of that, you can go in any direction, but which direction is the best one? And for me, I think just based off of the way he's describing his situation, I would do Capital One. But if there's some goal with getting like UR points, then that would change things as well. Chad also says a good thing too. He says you can always get chase cards after. I agree. Everyone says get chase cards first, but you don't necessarily have to do that, especially if you watch your chase 524 status pretty well. That would be another thing to think about too. Josh Ing says Capital One would be easier to manage and it has no foreign transaction fees, so it's easier to manage too. I agree with that as well. Okay, so it looks like it's about half and half. Again, there's no right or wrong answer, just only the right answer for you. So we're going to go ahead and stop the poll here now. So I hope that really helps give you an answer to your question, Curbsy. Hopefully you're able to choose whichever one you want to do. Let's see, anything else we got going on here with the questions? This is my question. So this is my question. So if any of the context I've given a couple of the previous chats, hopefully that helps you answer. So I'm going to go back to the chats to see what you said because I didn't have a chance to review the chats. Okay, so here's my question. I'm looking for international travel once per year. I'm going to put actually this slide up instead so we can kind of look at your setup. I'm looking for international travel once per year, probably on Delta because work gives me a decent amount of miles. Okay, great. So we have additional information. So he's looking for international travel once per year, which is great because Capital One has no foreign transaction fees. So that would be another kind of nudge towards Capital One. You said probably on Delta. So you have a Delta card. So all those benefits on the Delta Platinum apply, things like the MQD boost, priority boarding, free check bags, things like that. Which is good. So you have that. So we have some additional information. He said he also wants to venture X at some point, but I'm moving around every 6 months for work. I want to know my final placement for work and know my home airport until I do that. I think that makes sense. You want to know like if the Capital One lounges are where you at, if you have flights that make sense for you. One of the things that is another possibility because you have the venture card already is that you can always apply for the Venture X eventually, which I think you said in your comment down here. You said you're approved for the Saver and Venture X, which is great. That's good news already. Okay, so we kind of got all that. So if you want to get the Venture X eventually, the two options is apply for it because you never know. But if you really want it, you can always product change up to the Venture X. I'm not sure if you can have both the Venture and the Venture X, so I think that's going to be part of the issue. If anyone knows that off the top of their head, can you let me know down in the chat because I can't remember if that's true or not. It would be nice if you could have both because that way you can always get the Venture X first and then downgrade or cancel the Venture card if you get that one. But I can't remember if you can do that or not. But if you can, that would be the way I would do it. If not, then you have to make a decision if you want to get the welcome offer on the Capital One Venture X or just product change up to the Venture X immediately because that way you're guaranteed to get the card just in general. I know Uncle Luke did that. Is he had another card, Capital One, and product change up to the Venture X, and is now getting immense value from it anyways. So I think that's really great. And also, just to go with that, there's someone did get both. You can have both. You can have both. Okay, so you can definitely have both. Thank you for clarifying that.